Christ is risen, indeed he is risen. Today's Friday, the 16th. Yeah, I'm just making this video. This is about Arup Labs. I wish I could move this video down, but I guess I'll have to try to grab people's attention who are interested in the Arup Labs and the VA testing for any kind of autoimmune disease via blood plasma tests. But it's during now they assumed the VA contract shortly after President Biden was elected. But the interesting thing to note was this was a Republican Senate, Republican Congress. And as far as I could tell through my research, it actually came from the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, which would have been under a Republican-controlled Congress. So, the significant voting power within that committee. Actually, I think it's a committee. It's a full committee. It's not a subcommittee, or maybe it is a subcommittee. The Veterans Affairs. I can't recall. But anyway, whether committee or subcommittee, any voting power that would arise out of that would be Republican. And for the contract to be awarded through the VA, the channels for that would start with the committee or subcommittee on Veterans Affairs. So now I know a little bit more of the picture, and you do too, of why that lab was chosen and given a VA contract. And this is for the vast majority of VISNs. Remember, a VISN is a Veterans Integrated Service Network. And I think there's like 15 or 20 of them. Usually they're multiple states. So I guess there may be 10 to 15. I don't know. There may be different VISNs for our territories and for like Hawaii, Guam, let's see, where else would we go? Micronesia, Samoa, Saipan. So there may be multiple VISNs for those areas because they're so far spread out. Then you have Alaska. They probably had their own VISN for Alaska, I'll bet. Or maybe like Alaska and Washington. I mean, some places in Alaska, Seattle is like about an 8-hour drive. Sometimes of year it's nearly impassable. But so that's when Arup Labs, ARUP Labs, assumed the contract for the testing of autoimmune diseases and other blood chemistry borne markers for autoimmune diseases was in 2020 under a Republican-controlled Senate. And it makes kind of paints a bitter picture now, bitter and better, because this lab, as I've said before, actually sued the FDA, saying the FDA doesn't have the right to legislate or dictate or inspect or disapprove or even to contravene, to go against and disagree with proprietary blood chemistry methodologies to test blood. And the FDA says, yes, we do, and we set the levels. Well, in the end, I never found the case law for what, actually happened, or if it's under appeal even now. This was, 6 years ago? When they sued the FDA, it could still be in court. But they still have the contract. And, despite the PACT Act, making us veterans feel, and that's a Democrat, that's a Democrat initiated executive order through the desk of President Biden, former President Biden. And, but disenfranchising of us veterans began when they chose labs like Arup Labs or labs like Quest. Those are two labs that I have experience with. I only have limited experience with Quest. They did some blood plasma reactivity for me. I mean, I don't like to talk about stuff too much, but I just have limited experience with them. But I know that they've had problems in the past with double billing, federal and state agencies, uh, processing double samples off of one sample. They'll cut it in half and make two samples. And then some privacy issues with private HIPAA information, stuff like that. Oh, and the destruction of vital samples, blood, tissue. Some issues with that, with the proper destruction and disposal of it. But Arup Labs, I have quite a bit of experience. I've had like 3 different blood panels with them now. And because of their high range on everything that's autoimmune, it gives the VA opportunity to say, oh, we don't see significant markers here. And if, I've always thought I had rheumatoid, but digging more, it looks like I may be wrong, because I wasn't considering another symptom that I've had for quite a while. I mean, it got worse when I came back from the Middle East, but I didn't consider it. It was a blind spot. But psoriatic arthritis is more complicated than rheumatoid with some of these tests. But yet in other ways, because it has many more symptoms that rheumatoid does not, in that way, it kind of makes it also in another way easier to diagnose. Because a couple of the symptoms, no other disease has this, only they do, or only it does. Psoriasis is only connected to psoriatic arthritis. Whether you have the arthritic component or not, if you have psoriasis, you're a prime candidate to get psoriatic arthritis. Psoriatic arthritis. And some doctors will say that eczema is psoriasis when they're very wrong, because they're not properly educated about it, Flaky, or even tinea pedis, athlete's foot, sometimes is misdiagnosed as psoriasis. Tinea pedis does not scale and flake. Eczema flakes but doesn't scale. But people are ignorant about these diseases, so they just say, oh, that's athlete's foot, go get a spray. It'll go away. Well, the only reason it goes away is because the cryo treatment. A lot of those foot sprays, they freeze the skin. And so, of course, flaky skin's going to fall off. It just got frozen. Or it's sprayed with different, antifungals and with different kinds of chemicals that encourage it to dry more and to, detach from the top layer and to fall off. But it's psoriasis. It's not eczema. It's not tinea pedis or athlete's foot. This is psoriasis, something very different. It's almost like when you look at psoriasis, the scaling, the cracking, sometimes bleeding, and then sometimes the swelling, which encourages the cracking and the bleeding. When you put all this stuff together, I mean, it's almost like leprosy, to a certain point, kind of. There's a similarity there, and it's always misdiagnosed. I've lived that for years. Now I know, but a lot of people, other people don't. And when you have labs from, different companies like Arup Labs, Arup Labs Inc., and they also go under Arup Labs LLC. It makes you think that you have one thing, and your provider may care or they may not care. They just want to get you in and out so they can bill. But the educated provider will see these differences, and the really educated provider, somebody that thinks outside the box, they don't think in party lines or according to some movement, but they think in terms of what's just and unjust, what's scientific, what's not. And if they're a person of faith, they'll think in terms of what is righteous, what is wicked. Then that provider will say, oh, I wasn't aware about this stuff. I'm going to have to read about this lab. Maybe I'm going to have to start using this lab and then ordering a second opinion from another lab, which I was denied. So I tried. I asked for a different lab. They said there is no other lab. Even Quest uses the same range that Arup Labs does. Yeah, because the Quest lab tried to join their lawsuit against the FDA. Disenfranchising of veterans, And, I may be targeted about this stuff, but still I have to do the right thing. So someday, even though my family's been ripped apart, and it's just me and my youngest, and since we're financially in prison, I can't bring my other daughters here or even find one. At least, someday when my story's told, I did the right thing. And it's one thing that can't be taken away. What you did and what you didn't do, and what even, what your sin and your lack of sin, your prayer life or lack of prayer life, these things that can't be taken away. So hopefully, I'll get the news out there a little bit to some veterans so they know, that it's not in their head. They are being gaslit. And, in worst case scenario, you may live the story of Job, where everybody is against you. They're saying, oh, you're wrong. No, it's in your head. Listen to the doctor. It's not. Because in the end, even Job was wrong.